Hi, I'm Michelle Myers, and I am here to talk to you about my amazing birth story with my second son, Cole. If you followed me for a while, you know that with my first son, Noah, ended up with a placental abruption at 32 weeks and had an emergency C-section. So obviously that birth story was not ideal, and I was really praying that I was going to be able to have a VBAC or a vaginal delivery after a cesarean, and didn't look like I was going to be able to because I ended up having a scheduled C-section scheduled for Saturday, December the 21st, and if Cole had not come by that point, they were going to go ahead and they were going to do another surgery because by his head measurements, they were thinking that he was going to be too large for me to deliver vaginally if he went past 39 weeks. So on Saturday morning, December the 21st, I woke up about 5:15. We had to be at the hospital at 7 and realized that I was having a little bit of bleeding, which with a history of placental abruption made me actually pretty nervous. So I woke my husband up. I was like, hey, listen, let's go ahead. Let's get to the hospital. I just kind of want to get there and make sure that everything is okay. So we get to the hospital and we get to pre-op, and the nurse, who's wonderful, hooks me up to machines, and immediately, kind of like with Noah, as soon as I heard Cole's heartbeat, I'm like, whew, big sigh of relief. But after like 20 minutes, I'm noticing that I'm still on the monitors, to which that was a little weird for me because I'm thinking, okay, if I'm going to have surgery to deliver the baby, why would they leave me on these machines for 20 minutes? I'm just kind of thinking, like, you hear Cole, you hear me, everything's good. Let's take her off the machines. Let's wheel her back to surgery. And so I ask, I'm like, hey, why are you monitoring me still? Like, is there a certain amount of time? What are you looking for? And she says, Michelle, are you uncomfortable? And I was like, well, I mean, not exactly super comfortable here. What's going on? And she said, well, you're having contractions and they're actually pretty consistent. Like, they're consistent enough to where I kind of want to call your doctor and see what she wants to do. So calls my doctor. My doctor, of course, who's wonderful, PS, gets super excited and is like, oh my goodness, check her for dilation. So they check me for dilation, and I'm about 50% effaced and a centimeter dilated, which is exactly what I was on Tuesday, the last time I had an appointment, which at this point, it's now Saturday. So my doctor's like, well, that wasn't exactly what I wanted to see. I'll be there in a little bit and we'll see what's going on. So the doctor comes in and is like, well, Michelle, here's the deal. She said, you're contracting. I don't know 100% for sure that you're in labor, but I also can't ignore the fact that your contractions are consistent and they seem to be increasing in strength. So if you would like to, I'd like for you to be able to walk around for a little bit and just kind of see where we are in 45 minutes to an hour. So I'm like, okay, sounds good to me. So my husband actually goes and takes my son, because my parents are there at this point, and they go with my dad and they get lunch, and my mom and I start making laps around the labor and delivery ward. Well, after about 30 minutes of me making laps, I am like having some actually pretty painful contractions, and had one that I was like, I can't walk through that one. Had to stop and like hold on to the side of the wall in the hallway. And so we get back to pre-op, and at this point, the nurse checks me again, and she's like, Michelle, you're fully effaced and you're 3 centimeters. So it's pretty safe to say that you're in labor. So at this point, I am really excited because I'm thinking, like, I might actually get to do this. Like, and so my doctor comes and confirms it and sends me to labor and delivery. So just in, the 20 minutes that it takes for me to get from pre-op to a labor and delivery room, I am really in some pain now. Like, I am feeling these contractions. This is not normal. When they tell you you'll know if you're in labor, you're in labor. Like, if you are just having maybe some signs of labor but not experiencing any real pain, you're either not in full-blown labor yet. Like, it really is true. When you are in labor, you do know. So I get I get there, and because I'd had a previous C-section before and because my risk of uterine rupture was a little bit higher, they had to keep me monitored at all times. So I asked, is it possible for me to get in the shower? Is that going to be possible? Because I'm thinking like the pressure, the warm water might help me feel a little bit more comfortable. And my nurse is like, yes, let me get you some machines to where we can monitor you that are waterproof. So she gets me the waterproof machines. I get in the shower, and while standing in the shower having contractions, not so much fun. Between contractions, shower is awesome. So it actually gets to the point where I can no longer stand between contractions. So sorry if this is TMI, but you decided to watch. But I actually had to get out and sit down on the toilet in between contractions just so I could have somewhere to sit, and then I would get back into the shower between my contractions. So after doing this for a little bit while, and the contractions are getting so close together to where I'm literally not getting a break between contractions, I decide that it's probably time for me to get out of the shower and to lay down in the bed and see if that would be more comfortable. So get out of the shower, get hooked up to new monitors that aren't wet, and after laying down for about 15 seconds, my water breaks. And at that moment, if it wasn't real, it got real then. That was when I was like, holy moly. So the nurse comes in, who actually is not the nurse, but she's actually the charge nurse. That's about to get interesting. We'll tell you that in a minute. Comes in and says, okay, so your water broke and it was green, which tells us that you've got some meconium, which means that Cole has done his first bowel movement inside the womb. So that means that we might have to monitor him a little bit closely when he comes out, because he could have excess amount of fluid in his lungs. So she leaves, and then my doctor comes in and is like, funny story. So the nurse that's been checking on you is actually the charge nurse, not your actual nurse. I don't really have a nurse for you at this point, and you are progressing really, really quickly. So I am going to check you and see what we need to do. So at that point, I was 7 centimeters dilated, and she said, I need to give you a little dose of epidural to slow you down a little bit. So she comes in, or the man comes in, which was actually really funny. He had a beard. It was close to Christmas, and he's telling me all of these things, and I'm like, you know what? Around this time of year, always trust a bearded man. So he gave me the smallest dose possible of the epidural, which actually was not near as bad as I thought it was going to be. I really didn't want to have an epidural, but he gave me a low enough dose to where I could still feel what was happening. I could feel what was going on. I was not completely numb, and it didn't slow me down a ton, but it slowed me down enough to where I got to 10 centimeters, and then I only had to wait about 30 to 40 minutes before it was time for me to push again, and they actually got me a nurse. So got a nurse, and I think at that point, that's when it got real for James. That's when James was like, wow, this is really happening. And so I pushed for about 30 minutes, and then our sweet Cole was born, and it was an amazing experience. I loved the support of my husband and my doctor and the nurse. They were wonderful. It was actually a really fun experience. I know that sounds weird, but it was beautiful, and I was so relieved to not have another surgery. And all of this time elapsed in about 6 hours, which for a first-time delivery, which is what I was considered to be since the first time I had a surgery, that actually moved really, really, really quickly. And so Cole was born at 6:30, and he was just the most beautiful thing. And yes, they had to check him for excess fluid, and they banged on him way too hard for me for what seemed to be forever, but I'm sure it was less than 10 minutes. But he was 7 pounds, 9 ounces, and just the picture of beautiful and God's grace. And the thing that I think is so awesome is that I prayed so hard for a vaginal delivery, and God graciously gave me one. And, you know, I can't say that it wouldn't have been God's plan for me to have a C-section, but I can just tell you that I just loved every second of his blessing in getting a vaginal delivery, because I can tell you from experiencing both, recovery, especially with a toddler, was worlds different. Worlds different. I was much more myself even within the next couple of hours. I was able to get up and go to the bathroom by myself after a couple of hours after delivering Cole. I was able to take a shower by myself, which after a C-section, they apparently with liability, they can't even let you do that. And it was such a beautiful experience to be able to do that. So I'm saying this to all of the people who have had a C-section previously. If you have the right kind of incision to where you can try, please try. Please, please try. Let yourself experience that. Let yourself be able to have the luxury, and I say that word, the luxury of a vaginal recovery, because it was so different this time around. And it was so not traumatic. It was so not scary. It was so the way that it was supposed to be. And so for you and your spouse to be able to experience that together, and for, you know, all those moments that we didn't get the first time around. James got to cut the umbilical cord. I got to hold him within 10 minutes of delivering him. I got to see him actually come out. They got a mirror for me so that I could actually watch him, you know, come out. It was beautiful. And so I am so thankful to be able to have experienced it. And so if you are curious if it's worth it to try for a VBAC, yes. Actually, the research that's out there shows that repeat cesareans are actually way more dangerous than the risk of a uterine rupture. It's like 0.3% of something. And so definitely try. Take my experience, take my story, and use that unless your doctor tells you otherwise, and try. The worst thing that can happen is that you have another C-section, but at least you know that you tried and that you made an effort for an easier delivery and an easier recovery for you. So I pray that's an encouragement to you. If you have any questions about a VBAC, I'm more than happy to answer them. I'm pretty much an open book, so if you didn't get your answer here, I'm more than happy to answer it. But thanks for watching, and I know you want to see our little miracle. So here he is. This is Cole. Cole is 1 month old today. He is a really good sleeper, and he is absolutely precious. He's a huge blessing from God, and James and I are so thankful for him. Noah is a wonderful big brother. We are transitioning beautifully. So thank you for all of your prayers and your support and your encouragement and your notes about how gorgeous he is. I appreciate it. But here he is. So thanks for watching. Hope you have a fantastic day.